Vanessa leaned in across the marble kitchen island, her glossed lips curving into a smirk. "You're being paranoid. You don't know anything." Daniel didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice, didn't argue. He just looked at her, eyes unreadable like calm water masking something far beneath. Then, slowly, he smiled, so gently it almost felt like forgiveness. Almost. She took that as her win, flipping her hair and grabbing her purse, her heels echoing through the hallway. Girls' night again, always a girls' night. But this time, the silence after the door closed wasn't peaceful. It was surgical. Daniel waited 30 seconds, then reached into the inside pocket of his blazer and pulled out his phone. With deliberate precision, he unlocked it and scrolled to the recording app. One tap. The red light blinked. He placed the phone beneath the cushions of the couch, microphone aimed where she'd usually sit for her post-party recap calls. Just in case. Just to know. He'd felt it creeping in. Late returns, showers that lasted too long, makeup wipes in the trash when she claimed she wasn't wearing any, the scent of cologne, not his, clinging faintly to her hair. Vanessa had become meticulous, but not meticulous enough. Daniel was a man of numbers, of data, a financial analyst by trade and a strategist by nature. He didn't yell. He didn't confront. He confirmed. So when the audio file finished saving the next morning, labeled quietly Girls' Night March 3rd, he played it back. It started with giggles, gossip, the usual filler. Then her voice, lower, intimate. "You should have seen his face when I told him not to come. He's still so clueless." Pause. Soft laugh. "No, baby. Of course I'll see you tomorrow. Just be quick, okay? And don't wear cologne this time." He noticed. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, the sun pouring in behind him like warmth on a battlefield. He closed his eyes for a second, then renamed the file. "Happy birthday, Vanessa, MT3. He didn't shout. He didn't leave. He waited. Because some lies deserve an audience. And her birthday, it was coming up in 10 days. The days that followed felt like walking through a theater set. Beautiful on the surface, hollow behind the curtains. Vanessa carried on with her usual flair, flipping through outfit choices, texting furiously with friends, and humming along to her Spotify playlist like nothing had changed. But Daniel, now awakened to the lie beneath her performance, moved differently. He didn't alter his routine in any obvious way. He still made her coffee in the mornings, still kissed her forehead before heading out, but behind his steady gaze, a machine had started turning. At work, he was sharper than ever, clearing his desk by noon to leave space in the day for what mattered now: preparation. Each night, Vanessa returned from work later than the last. She always had an excuse: traffic, wine with colleagues, an impromptu late meeting. Daniel never questioned her anymore. That would give away his hand. Instead, he nodded along and noted the inconsistencies, the way she lingered near the mirror a bit too long before her girls' nights, the sudden secrecy with her phone, the generic tone she used when describing her friends. He started collecting moments, not just audio now, but everything. Text threads she left open too long, credit card statements that showed unexpected charges, of boutiques he never heard of, a second Uber ride after midnight. He was calm, methodical. His goal wasn't confrontation, it was clarity. Then came the message that made his pulse freeze. Vanessa had left her laptop open one morning before heading to a spa appointment. As Daniel passed by it, a notification from a cloud drive popped up. It was brief, just a thumbnail of a photo labeled S+V rooftop. He didn't need to open it, the timestamp said enough. It was taken 2 nights ago. She had told him she was at a wine tasting with her friend Natalie. She even came home with a printed brochure about bold reds and pairing cheeses. The betrayal wasn't just physical, it was her effort to manufacture entire realities and present them with practiced ease. That's what made it sinister. That's what made it personal. Daniel didn't scream, he didn't break anything. He just closed the laptop, walked over to the window, and stared out at the skyline. Her birthday was in 4 days. He opened his phone and tapped the file. "Happy birthday, Vanessa MP3. Her voice came through instantly, light, laughing, intimate in a way she never was with him anymore. "I've got him wrapped around my finger. He still thinks I'm planning a weekend with the girls. I mean, please." He's sweet, but clueless. A beat. "Yeah, baby. I love when you talk to me like that. God, I wish you were here right now." Daniel hit stop. He'd heard enough. Not because it hurt. He had already passed that point, but because now it was strategy. He made a reservation at her favorite rooftop restaurant, a place she'd been hinting at for weeks. He called it a surprise birthday dinner, and she had beamed with excitement when he told her. God, "You're finally being romantic again," she had said, laughing as she kissed him on the cheek. That night, as she drifted off to sleep, Daniel lay next to her in the dark, staring at the ceiling, hearing her voice replay over and over in his head. But he didn't feel rage. Not anymore. He felt control. The perfect moment was coming. He would give her everything she ever wanted: attention, admiration, a spotlight. Only this time, it would burn. The evening sun dipped low behind the skyline as Daniel adjusted his cuffs and stepped onto the rooftop. The restaurant had spared no expense. String lights hung like suspended stars, golden hours spilled over champagne flutes, and a live saxophonist played soft jazz in the background. Everything was perfect. Vanessa's perfect. The setting she'd always dreamed of for a night that revolved entirely around her. Daniel arrived early, not because he was eager, but because he needed to ensure every detail was executed precisely. He confirmed with the hostess that the private dining area overlooking the city had been reserved under his name. He slipped a generous tip to the manager and gave one simple instruction: at exactly 8:15 p.m., cut the music and hand him the mic. That was all. The table was adorned with fresh lilies, her favorite, and sleek white candles flickering in glass votives. A three-tiered cake sat nearby, and the Bluetooth speaker system quietly cycled through her curated playlist. Vanessa had sent it to him weeks ago, insisting he make the night Instagram-worthy. He had nodded, pretending to be overwhelmed by the planning, while mentally calculating how long the night would take to detonate. Guests began to arrive in waves. Friends from her yoga class, coworkers with too much lipstick and designer bags, her cousin who lived for gossip, and even their mutual friends. People Daniel barely tolerated but welcomed tonight like old companions. Everyone came to celebrate Vanessa. Beautiful, charismatic, untouchable Vanessa. When she arrived, the party truly began. She stepped out of the elevator in a champagne-colored dress that shimmered in the setting sun. Her makeup was immaculate, hair curled into soft waves, her confidence blooming with every click of her heels. The crowd erupted into applause. Phones were raised, cameras flashed, and Vanessa basked in it all as if the city itself had stopped to watch her glow. She kissed Daniel lightly on the cheek, murmuring, "You really outdid yourself," before floating off to greet guests, pose for photos, and sip Prosecco like royalty. Daniel stood at the edge of it all, smiling just enough, nodding just enough. An attentive husband, quiet and supportive. The perfect man behind the perfect woman. But he wasn't watching her to admire. He was watching her to time the drop. At exactly 8 p.m., the energy peaked. Laughter echoed through the rooftop. Clinking glasses sparkled in the light, and Vanessa began opening her gifts with exaggerated delight. She squealed at perfume, gasped at designer shoes, and even teared up when her best friend gave her a framed collage of their memories. Daniel waited, calm, centered. His phone sat in his pocket, the file already queued, Bluetooth already paired. At 8:15, the music faded out mid-song. Conversations stalled as people turned, unsure whether it was a glitch or a part of the evening's program. Then Daniel stepped forward, tapping the mic twice. "I just want to say a few words," he began, his voice clear and composed. "Tonight is about celebration, about truth, about unforgettable moments." Vanessa smiled at him from the center of the room, wine glass in hand, the last sliver of her birthday candle flickering beside her. Daniel met her gaze. "Vanessa's been keeping a secret from all of us," he said, pausing long enough to let the confusion spread. "And since we're all here to celebrate her, I figured let's all hear it together." He took out his phone, found the file titled "Happy Birthday, Vanessa, MP3, and pressed play. The audio poured from the speakers, her voice, sultry, playful, unmistakable. You should have seen his face. He still thinks I'm with the girls. "Baby, I wish you were here." Gasps broke out. Glasses froze midair. The air turned electric. Vanessa's smile collapsed in real time. For a moment, there was only the sound of Vanessa's voice echoing across the rooftop. Not the polished party hosting tone she'd just used minutes earlier, but something far more raw, intimate, flirtatious, dripping with betrayal. Her words wrapped around the air like poison perfume. "You know I miss you, right? God, last night was so hot. I wish I could have stayed in your arms, but he gets suspicious if I'm out too late. Can't risk it again this week. I'll just tell him I'm staying with Natalie." Daniel didn't move. He didn't need to. The recording played on as if it were its own living, breathing thing, one that couldn't be stopped, not even by the horrified expression spreading across Vanessa's face. Her jaw slackened, Her wine glass trembled in her hand before shattering against the floor, the sound like a gunshot in the silence. Whispers broke out first. Faces turned toward her, then toward each other, then back to Daniel. Some guests looked away in awkward disbelief. Others stared, fully transfixed, like spectators at a train wreck that had just begun. Someone near the back gasped as the voice on the recording shifted in tone, giggling sultry again. God, I love when you grab my hair like that. We're so much better than him. He's sweet, but boring. He has no idea who you are to me. No clue at all. A sickening kind of electricity pulsed through the crowd. A woman covered her mouth. One of Vanessa's coworkers instinctively pulled out her phone, though no one had yet decided whether to film or flee. Vanessa took a single step backward, blinking rapidly as if trying to reset time. Daniel, she managed, voice barely audible, turn it off. Please. But he didn't. Ah. The final line hit like a whip crack. I'll make something up. I always do. He believes whatever I tell him. Honestly, I think he's just too afraid to know the truth. Then, silence. Daniel slipped the phone back into his pocket, slow and deliberate, before handing the mic off to a stunned restaurant staffer who stood frozen near the bar. He turned to the room now entirely his. Thank you for coming, he said with impeccable calm. I know this wasn't the kind of birthday you were expecting, but Vanessa wanted unforgettable, so I delivered. He walked away without another glance toward her. Vanessa stood in the center of the rooftop, trembling, her carefully constructed illusion unraveling thread by thread. One of her friends tried to put a hand on her shoulder, but she flinched, stepping out of reach, as if physical contact would burn her. A man near the edge of the crowd, the husband of one of Vanessa's closest friends, suddenly turned, storming away in the opposite direction. His wife followed, pale and stunned. That was the twist no one saw coming. As Daniel exited the rooftop, a ripple moved through the guests. One of the women burst into tears. Another cursed under her breath. A man's voice barked, "Are you serious, Vanessa? Him? My husband?" Her eyes darted wildly, searching for anyone to defend her, but there was no refuge. Only judgment, only the spotlight she'd always loved, now weaponized and unforgiving. In the elevator on the way down, Daniel didn't smile. He didn't cry. He simply stared at his reflection, straightening his collar as if preparing for a meeting. Because in a way, he had just closed the biggest deal of his life. The door opened, cool night air greeted him. Behind him, Vanessa's birthday had become her reckoning, and it wasn't over yet. The valet opened the door with a polite nod, unaware of the emotional detonation that had just taken place above them. Daniel slid into the driver's seat, his movements fluid, precise. He didn't glance back, not once. The elevator doors might as well have sealed off another world, one he no longer belonged to. As he merged onto the main road, the city lights blurred through his windshield, like stars smeared across a canvas. His phone buzzed once in his pocket, then again. He didn't need to look, he knew who it was. Calls, texts, maybe even voice notes now, ironic as that would be. Vanessa was scrambling to regain control of a story she no longer owned, but Daniel had already disconnected. He didn't need to hear excuses or tears or recycled lies. He had given her the stage, she had revealed the rest all on her own. Her voice had betrayed her, with more honesty than she ever could face to face. By the time he reached his apartment, yes, his apartment, a quiet place he'd leased 2 weeks ago in preparation, he felt something unfamiliar. Stillness. Not numbness, not relief, just stillness. The kind that comes after a storm has passed and there's nothing left to brace for. He poured himself a glass of scotch, not to celebrate, but to mark the moment. One sip, cold and clean. Then came the knock. It was his friend, Mark, the one who had always sensed something wasn't right long before Daniel ever admitted it. He'd been at the party, had watched it all unfold. That was colder than the champagne, Mark said, letting himself in. Daniel exhaled through his nose, faint amusement flickering behind his eyes. She wanted unforgettable, he said, lifting his glass. I delivered. Mark shook his head, equal parts impressed and stunned. Man, they'll be talking about that party for years. Good, Danny replied, let them. Because sometimes justice isn't loud or violent. Sometimes it's quiet, clinical, delivered with a smile and a Bluetooth speaker. He set the glass down, the ice clinking gently against the sides. There would be no second chances, no reconciliation, only truth and a clean break. Daniel had walked away, not as the victim, but as the architect of his own revenge. And Vanessa, she was left holding the pieces of a party that had started with candles and ended with silence.